What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Primarch Purpose. This is the series in which I look at each individual Primarch in reverse Legion order, giving you my thoughts and opinions on what I think the Emperor's goal was for creating each individual Primarch. The Primarch project was definitely done with an endgame goal in mind. The Primarchs were each individually crafted and modified for specific needs and purposes. We never get to see it truly come to fruition because the heresy happens. So, with that said, in order to have a look at what the purpose of the Primarchs might be, as intended by the Emperor, following the Great Crusade and all that, we have a bit of a what-if scenario here for this series, and I go into it in a little more detail in the intro overview. But basically, we're looking at the Great Crusade being over, but being done successfully. No heresy to speak of. The Emperor alive and well, leading the Imperium, which is Imperial truth-driven. As a result, there is no ecclesiarchy or its forces. The Inquisition is not like it is in standard 40k. It's a different entity entirely. Therefore, the standard Inquisition and its forces don't exist either. The Primarchs are alive, loyal to the Emperor, leading their legions. There are no chapter breakdowns. It's still legions. We still have the Xenos threats. We would have all the Xenos codices still existing in this theoretical setting in 40k and all that jazz. We still have a Chaos threat. The warp spawn demons of the Chaos Gods are still a big threat. Still have the Eye of Terror and all that jazz to worry about. We still have breakaway human factions and mortal hearts being corrupted and all that. We can even have Dark Mechanica, and we just won't have any Chaos Space Marines. So, with all that said and in mind, let's take a look at the 13th Legion's Primarch. This is a Loyalist Primarch. It's been a little bit of a stretch of traitors in the past editions. So we're now looking at a Primarch. We don't have to worry about figuring out how they stay loyal or anything. We're looking at Guilliman, Roboute, however you want to pronounce his name, Guilliman, leader of the Ultramarines. Ultramarine stuff always gets flack from people because it's the Ultramarines. They're poster children. They can do no wrong in a lot of people's eyes, and that bothers them. Kind of the Mary Sue, if you will. But Guilliman's really cool. Now, all the Primarchs are paragons of human genome capability, if you will. They're all masterful tacticians. They're all warriors, exemplar, everything like that. And Grange is very blunt and brutal with his tactics. We have Lorgar, who is not the best fighter. He's probably the weakest of the Primarchs when it comes to fighting. Lore-wise, he views himself as a scholar. He's not a warrior. In his eyes, he never was. So we see that means that when he's fighting against his brother Primarchs, he's always on the back end, always on the back burner, backpedaling, and always, in a pure fist fight, he is pretty much going to lose against his brothers. Now, he's still a Primarch and more than capable as a fighter in general. So, the reason I bring all this up is because it's not like saying one Primarch is something extraordinary or an exemplar of something and therefore all the Primarchs are bad at it. Not the case. So I just want to clarify that, because Guilliman can sound like he's just the best of everything and every Primarch is lesser to him, and it's not the case. But he is widely considered to be a paragon of what Primarchs are. Like, if you just describe generically what a Primarch is, you're basically kind of describing Guilliman. And you're describing a few other Primarchs too, but he is going to embody a lot of that characteristics. Now, he is a true warrior king, not just a masterful strategist and supreme tactician that he is. He's also a leader, a political leader, a statesman, a warrior, and a commander all in one. He is the warrior king Primarch. He really is kind of exemplar of all those traits. It does mean other Primarchs aren't supreme strategists. You have a lot of really capable commanders and tactics, tactical things and tacticians and stratagems and all that, all the different Primarchs. But he is a leader, not just a commander. And that's the big difference. And the best way I can kind of put it to words is that way. For example, Horus. Horus was War Master. Horus is a very capable commander, knows when and where to put forces for maximum damage and effect. He considered himself and his legion to be the best because he's got pride. He embodies pride. But my point is, he's not a leader. He is not a statesman-style Primarch, where Guilliman is that exemplar extraordinaire bar none. So there is a difference. What that means is that Horus and Guilliman, while sharing similar aptitude for commanding, Guilliman is of the higher aptitude for being an all-around leader. That's just his shtick. That's what he does. So, Horus being War Master makes sense. That's a commander of a campaign. Now, the Great Crusade just happened to be an immensely huge campaign, but a campaign nonetheless. It did not carry with it responsibility or duty to the Imperium at large outside of leading the Great Crusade, the title of War Master. Befitting for Horus. He was worthy of it. He was the first Primarch found. He just fit the role very well. All the Primarchs could do, but he fit that role very well. Guilliman isn't just a commander. He's, like I said, a leader. This is why if the Emperor had the position of Lord Commander of the Imperium in this theoretical setting, it would still go to Guilliman. He was the first one to take it up, and he currently embodies it in 8th edition. And it's different from being a War Master because it's basically first amongst equals in the ruling Council of Humanity, the High Lords and all that. The Lord Commander of the Imperium is first amongst all that. And you can have a Lord Commander of the Imperium and a War Master at the same time because, again, the War Master leads a campaign. Specifically, the Great Crusade was a massive campaign, and a War Master would only deal with that. It wouldn't deal with the whole Senatorium Imperialis stuff and politicking or anything of that regard. So that is the difference, right? Guilliman is that statesman, leader, warrior. He is of supreme strategy. He is a masterful fighter. He has an unbreakable will. He has a cold logic that lets him make the hard choices, the more utilitarian choices. And we see time and time again this exemplified in different Horus Heresy novel series, books, or short stories that he's in, leading his forces. We see it in the whole Codex Astartes of Standard 40k, penning that Codex Astartes 10,000 years in the past, more or less, basically. Still being a reference and useful and not a relic of the past. It still is good for winning victory against forces not even known about at the time. So it just further shows his capabilities in terms of commanding and leading and having insight and imparting that insight and wisdom. We see it when he comes back in Standard 40k. He takes up the role of Lord Commander of the Imperium again. So he's a very capable statesman, leader, warrior, commander, all that jazz. Is he the best fighter? No, he's not. It's not like he's perfect at everything. It's just that he is your stereotypical, much like the Ultramarines are your stereotypical of what a Space Marine would be. Guilliman is kind of your stereotypical idea of what a Primarch is. Only his specialty is that whole warrior king philosophy. I mean, look at the realm of Ultramar. It's always been an example of his capability. The 500 worlds brought under the control of the Ultramarine Legion basically is because of the warrior king statesman mentality of Guilliman. So in this theoretical setting, this means that we're looking at a Primarch who would still be very active on the front lines, but more one of the Primarchs that would be counseling the Emperor a lot, right? All the Primarchs would be kind of confidants for the Emperor to bounce ideas off of or talk to, discuss things, strategy, philosophy, whatever, just like he does with his Custodes. But certain Primarchs more so than others, right? Conrad Kurz is not going to be a big counselor role. Angron, not necessarily a big counselor role either, if in theory. Lehman Russ, perhaps not too much either, just because of his way he is and everything like that. Lacan, same deal. But Guilliman is probably going to be chief amongst the Primarchs as a primary counselor. And if he had to be, if there had to be another War Master, it could be Horus again because he had the role before, or the Emperor might want his other sons to have experience with that. Guilliman would be a very capable candidate for that. But basically, Guilliman would not so much run it, but he would be a immense figure and factor in the efficiency of the Imperium, right? The Imperium is a big, unwieldy monstrosity of an empire. And as a result, Anything that's done to help make it more efficient in one area at the very least, in the galactic east, can help trickle out into the galactic west and everywhere else in terms of, okay, manpower and time, resources, and attention is not needed as much in this realm of Ultramar, so we can put it somewhere else. And whenever Guilliman's able to further help that efficiency with other worlds, other sectors, it just benefits the Imperium overall. It's a big, unwieldy beast as it is, so there's plenty of conflict and plenty of room for Guilliman's genius to shine. So yeah, I know it sounds like I talked him up a lot, but he's a very cool Primarch. He is the Statesman Warrior King, like I mentioned, and he's a Primarch whose purpose we pretty much, if you know Space Marines and 40k and the Primarchs in general, you pretty much already knew what his purpose was, right? We pretty much already had an idea. We've seen it in action multiple different ways in the 40k wargame lore, as well as the Black Library novel series and all that. So there's not too much else to say for Guilliman. Capable fighter, supremely intelligent, very much a leader, not just a commander, and there is a difference. Horus, fantastic commander, not so much a leader type. That doesn't mean he can't. Just because he's not a leader type doesn't mean he can't lead. You don't have to take it so literally. Leader, I mean, in terms of being not just martial but also political and all that jazz, and council and all that. So he is also really good because, or I should say, not really good, but he's also really shown his capabilities through his Legion, his Legion's record, his chapter, in post-heresy 40k, the chapter continuing that streak. But not just that, his Legion is the largest Legion. This is due in twofold. His GNC is remarkably stable, takes and grows pretty quickly. That helps create new warriors. On top of that, his strategy, his tactics has allowed his Legion to grow. They don't do attritional warfare. They've taken heavy losses, but more often than not, under Guilliman's rule of his Legion, he's able to achieve victory with minimal losses. Efficient victory, basically. When you combine that with how stable and fast his GNC is able to take hold and create an Astartes, it allows his Legion to grow. And this, where his Legion's growing amidst the Great Crusade, other Legions are just trying to break even in terms of size. So he was able to forge his Legion to be the largest Legion, not only because of his gene being very stable, but also because of his tactics and his leadership capability for his Legion. So that's another kind of maybe a bit more subtle example. Just the fact that his Legion is able to be as large as it is also a testament to his capability and what his purpose and role would be post Great Crusade. And yes, real quick, I know there's one particular mention that is thought one of the Lost Legions were kind of inducted into the Ultramarines and swelled their rank. That's just a nice little conspiracy theory thing. If there's any weight to it, who knows? But when it comes to the Ultramarines Legion, it's the largest Legion. When you look at Guilliman, his tactics, the lore behind him, and how his legions achieve victory, it makes sense that his strategic brilliance would lead to winning with minimal casualties. Combine that with the GNC to grow larger. Also, he doesn't just take worlds, move on. He also makes them efficient worlds. He doesn't just conquer it and move. He conquers, and he doesn't just he doesn't rebuild necessarily from the ground up, but he conquers and he kind of institutes a structure that's efficient to the worlds. So, yet again, another warrior king philosophy and mentality. Anyways, that's it for the Statesman Primarch that is Guilliman. Pretty cool. I like him. A capable commander, a capable fighter, a supreme leader and tactician, a go-to Primarch for council for sure, amongst several others. You can draw similarities to a variety of Primarchs in general, and same thing with Guilliman to other Primarchs as well, but the big difference is that leader concept, that statesman concept, that really, I think, defines Guilliman. Anyway, thanks very much for sticking through it. I've repeated myself several times, kind of went on tangents here and there, but thanks very much for sticking through it. Share your thoughts on Guilliman, what you think his purpose might be, and until next time, you can also leave any other comments for questions, concerns, or just whatever else, requests and all that jazz. And until next time, take it easy.